Hello, and welcome to another podcast episode on CodeStories. The name of my guest is Matt Fewer. He is a musician and software developer from Long Island, New York. He's worked both as a developer and programming teacher, and will tell us about his coding bootcamp experiences and other exciting things he's up to. Since Matt is a musician, I couldn't resist having a jam session with him. Matthew, welcome.
Thank you, Nathaniel.
How you doing, man?
I'm great. Happy to be here. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much. So you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Matt Fewer. I come from Long Island, New York. I moved to Berlin 4 years ago. I started off teaching computer programming in Berlin, and then about 2 years ago, I went back into software development, and that's currently what I'm doing now.
Oh, okay. So before we started the podcast, we jammed together, and you're a great musician, by the way.
Thank you.
So how long have you been playing? Being a musician? I mean, you're a part-time musician, kind of.
Yeah, I took lessons when I was young, like 7 years old. My mom made me back when, you don't really want to do music lessons, but she kind of forced me to. And then, right before high school, I discovered bands like Blink-182 and New Found Glory, and then I really started actively playing. And then joined a few bands back in New York and played a bunch of gigs. I played in a cover wedding band, and I played a lot of parties like that and gigs in New York City. And then that kind of took a back seat once I started transitioning to software development. And now I'm jamming in a band now here in Berlin, but nothing like big.
So when did this transition begin?
In 2015, 2014 to 2015, I graduated college in 2011.
Computer science?
No, business management. And I worked a bunch of odd jobs. I worked in sales, in marketing, in construction. I was a audio video technician for a while. I was a manager of a Starbucks for a year. And those jobs left me feeling unfulfilled. And I didn't know what my path was going to be. I felt very unsure of my career. And after leaving the Starbucks position, I spoke with my parents, and they said, well, why don't you look into computer science? You've always been talking about learning programming and getting into technology. And I said, you know what? Yeah, now's the time to do that. And yeah, then I started down that path of...
So before you actually had that talk with your parents, did you had any experience in programming or in computer science?
No, none at all. I wasn't one of those people that built a computer when they were 10 years old. I didn't dabble in any sort of programming prior to that. So actually, I attribute that partially to why I procrastinated on it. Because when I was in college, the thought came to me to maybe you should switch your major to computer science. But the little bird in my head was saying no, it's too late. There's already so many people that are so much better than you. You'll never get ahead, and that was a mistake looking back on it. So you wish you could have started much earlier. Yeah, I do. I'm not no regrets, you know what I mean? But yeah, I would have done computer science way back when if I had everything figured out at that time.
Yeah, I think I had a similar experience. I was introduced to not computer science, but to programming it's almost 8 years ago. And someone introduced us programming to me, and I was like, oh, what's this programming thing? I never took it seriously. I thought it was just maybe just something you do as a hobby, but getting paid as a software developer was never something that came into my mind. It was actually when I like started doing some research. I knew, oh, so this is something you can actually learn and get paid for. So yeah, cool. So when did your journey as a instructor began?
Well, I guess it began prior to that because I went to a boot camp in New York City. I went to General Assembly. I took the web development immersive, which is just the full stack 3-month boot camp.
For how long?
For 3 months.
3 months. Okay. Yeah. So it was intense, right?
Yeah, it was one of the most intense things I've ever done.
Wow.
Honestly. And we could talk a lot about that. But to answer your question, I became enamored with the boot camp. I really enjoyed the atmosphere. It's just a lot of smart, motivated people that really want to do better themselves by learning programming or changing their careers, or both. So, you know, after working as a developer for a little while in New York, a recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, are you interested in opportunities abroad? Are you interested in teaching at a startup boot camp here in Berlin?" And I was like, "Yes, tell me more." You know, and long story short, we did it. I came to Berlin and I worked there for 2.5 years, and it was a great experience.
Was that before you graduated in boot camp?
No, that was 1.5 years after.
Afterwards. Yeah. So were you already working professionally as a software developer?
Yeah, I did some consulting work, some freelance work, and I was also working full time at a web development house that built websites for physicians and dentists, that type of stuff, WordPress stuff.
Great. Yeah. Tell us about your experience at the boot camp. So it's 3 months. I did a video on boot camp, self-taught boot camp college, and I mentioned that boot camp is it's short and intense, and the idea behind it is to teach you something that actually takes, let's say, a year or two to learn. Try to compress it in 3 months, and you can really feel that, because I also did online boot camp, and it starts very slow, right? It's like, let's declare a variable and let's loop through an array, and then later on it's like, okay, now do this. And so how was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was everything you said. Honestly, it was, you know, I had a little bit of a primer beforehand because I took some undergraduate classes at a community college on Long Island, some intro to Java classes essentially. And one thing that really bothered me was that the pace of the classes were so slow. Honestly, there was, I think, a month where we just focused on just arrays, you know, and it wasn't that deep into arrays or anything. And I felt very unfulfilled with there's got to be a better way. This is going to take forever for me to learn. So I heard about the boot camps and about General Assembly, and that was exactly what I wanted. I wanted to learn fast. I wanted to learn deeply. And I got that out of that experience, you know. Yeah, I think they kind of started off right away, pretty fast, and but like I said, I had a little bit of a primer, with data types and functions and object-oriented stuff. But it was still hard, you know. I was between class and the assignments, I was, 11, 12 hours a day, super focused on programming. But I loved it. I loved it because I was so motivated from bad experiences with other jobs. And for me, it was failure is not an option. I can't fail out of this class because I don't know what else I'll do. So that was highly motivating for me to learn programming very deeply. and I really got that out of the boot camp experience.
So were there boot camp dropouts? So people who like somewhere down the line were like, okay, I'm done with this.
Yeah, that does happen. I think General Assembly and Spiced, the place where I used to teach, they have, what do you call them? Like they have rules for, if a student is struggling, like what they can do to help them, and maybe they can leave them back into the next class just so they get to like know the material and can try again, essentially. But yeah, sometimes, I think you'll agree that programming isn't for everybody. You can't, even if you think you want to try it and you one day find that it's not for you, and that's okay. For me, like I'm a very math oriented person. Like math was my best subject in grade school. So, I kind of gravitated towards programming for that reason.
Okay. So, when you moved to Germany, you worked as an instructor in Spice Academy, right?
Right.
So how was your experience in boot camp here in Germany and your experience in boot camp in America? Like, is it different? Like,
was it different? I mean, it was different because Spiced was a startup and was really learning about the industry, and me coming in was like had the most boot camp experience out of all those people. Okay. General Assembly, on the other hand, was established, had campuses all over the country and all over the world for that matter, and they did a very good job at structuring and organizing classes and getting the network to the network of people there to gel and make friends and make contacts and maybe get a job through these people one day. So in that sense, like, it was very different. It was startup versus like big established school. But also, like, with Spiced, it was smaller, and in that sense it really felt like a family. And I think a lot of people that went through Spiced in the early years would agree with me that it really felt like a small family, and that you were just like, or me personally as an instructor was like very invested in the well-being and the success of my students, and a lot of them I became good friends with. I'm still friends with them now, and yeah, it was really great. It was tough establishing the curriculum, and for me also mastering the curriculum is there's a lot that could be said about that, honestly. Like it was hard, and with being an instructor, it's not just about teaching the classes. That's like the easy part. You got to know how to teach the class and know what you're talking about. The hard part is being ready for the questions from the students, of which there's many, and you have to be ready for all of it. You know what I mean? Or maybe you won't be ready for all of it, but if you're not ready for it, you figure it out with them. And that was very challenging. And I think it is for most boot camp instructors, but it was very rewarding, and I look back on those experiences very fondly.
Right, nice. Did you had any like study materials outside of boot camp, or was it just boot camp for you when you were doing the boot camp? Or do you recommend your students to go outside and look for something else?
Well, so I developed like my own system for learning, and I told this to a lot of my students and to my friends too. When I was learning at General Assembly, I definitely, one, took it very seriously. Two, I did all the assignments as much as I could, even if you had to work late in the evening. And the thing about a boot camp, like you said, is it's so much information crammed into 3 months that things are going to be forgotten, and you're not going to be able to remember everything. So what I did was I had a list in my Evernote, and that's another thing I recommend to people that are starting out with programming is like keep diligent notes for yourself, because programming is a huge world, and you might work on Backbone and then not work on Backbone for 3 years and then come back to it and not remember everything. But if you took nice notes for yourself, you'll be able to refresh yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had this list of topics that I was not confident with. And that list would get longer and longer. Like, when I don't know, for example, if like npm scripts and package.json are just like something, right? Like if I felt like, what is that? I don't know what they mean when they're talking about that, and this could be anything. What do they mean when they say object-oriented programming? What do they mean when they say hoisting? What's the difference between const and let? Like any of these topics that you're just not sure about, write that down. And then later on, when you have free time, spend a half hour researching that one topic. Great. Half hour to an hour, and you'll go in the next day feeling much more confident about that topic, and that I did that one topic like that every day. And that really helped me, like to pace my learning so I didn't overwhelm myself, and to, make it in building blocks for myself. And I think that really, really helped me.
Great. Cool.
Yeah.
So you did a talk at the GOTO developer conference, right?
Yeah. Back in October 2019.
Oh, not recently, but. And how was it for you? So you did it with oh no, forgot his name. Michele.
Yeah.
Sorry, Michele. You did it with Michele, and how was it?
It was great.
Was that your first talk, like developer?
Like that? Yeah, in front of a couple hundred people.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the first time. I was nervous. I was nervous and anxious. It was a ton of prep. I was talking about the project that I've been working on for this past year.
Tell us.
I was talking about that project. Yeah, I will talk about that. But I had to really learn about the project and the theory behind the project and prep all this material and make the slides and work with designers and script myself essentially. And we had to do a bunch of dry runs, and yeah, it was a lot. But I'm glad I did it. It was a great challenge for me. And yeah, it was cool, to see myself on that stage, and the other thing is I want to share with people, I really identify as an educator after having come from Spice, and I really want to keep that up, and by doing talks or other lessons or maybe video tutorials in the future.
Great. So the project you were focused on, what project was that about?
So yeah, at the company I currently work at, that we both work at, we were colleagues. It's essentially rebuilding the front-end web application. The current web application is legacy, and it became a monolith, and we all know the stories about monoliths and spaghetti code and difficult to manage, difficult to scale, this and that.
Yeah, every company has that.
Yeah. And that's
it's not a secret.
And we had that.
Yeah.
And certain things happened in the business that made this rebuilding the front end application a good idea and a wise opportunity. So the company built a team. I was part of that team, and yeah, we built it with Next.js. Well, it's a whole JavaScript application. So we built it with Next.js to utilize server-side rendering for the performance benefits. React, Redux. We use Redux Saga in conjunction with Redux. And yeah, those are the main components of the application. Right. And yeah,
I mean, talking about this project during the conference help you to dive more deeper into it, right? Because you stand in front of hundreds of other developers and you need to know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. And this is something about when you're getting into a new career, you're going to be constantly put in positions that are outside of your comfort zone. And this talk was very much that for me, because I had to learn a lot about this application and the theory behind it, because at the time not much of it was built. Honestly, we had only been working on it for like a handful of months. But that was an opportunity for me to learn a lot about it and understand it deeply.
Okay.
And in the same thought, I also wrote a blog post recently about getting started with Redux Saga. And that was, one, to try my hand at writing, technical writing, and two, to challenge myself to understand Redux Saga more deeply, because I understood most of the parts on the surface, but I wanted to learn more about it, and I wanted to kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, by making a blog post out of it.
Great, thank you. So, what's your next big project? Do you have anything in mind or anything on the pipeline? Any conference talk?
Well, the
tutorials.
Well, I want to write a few more blog posts. I definitely want to do that. I have, I'm sure you also have a lot of like unfinished projects all over the place.
Yep.
I recently was like, I built an app for myself so that I could generate random scales that I would have to play. Like, so it'd be like play the A minor pentatonic, and then if I like ran it again, it'd be like, okay, play the D harmonic minor, like that. And I built like an app that just like gives that to me, just to challenge me to get better at music theory, essentially. As far as something serious, not so much right now. I've actually been focusing on music this year, with being locked up because of the pandemic, and just been throwing myself into Ableton Live and guitar playing, and that's been my focus lately.
Great. So we're almost done. However, there's one thing I would like to talk about, and there's maybe it's a myth, but you mentioned something recently that musicians are it's a lot of musicians are transitioning to software development. So where did you get that from?
I mean, from my personal experience, honestly.
Okay.
When I was at General Assembly, there were several musicians in my cohort. One of my good friends from that time was a musician himself. And also working at Spiced, I had a lot of musicians come through, and we actually used to have jam sessions on like Friday nights where I'd invite everyone, hey, bring your guitars and your keyboards or your voice if you're a vocalist, and we'll jam. And we had some really fun times. Great. But I think that, I don't know, when you're a musician, you embrace the creative element of it. Of music, I mean. And, for me, thinking about what I wanted out of a career, I didn't want to lose this creative aspect of my life. And I asked myself, well, what careers allow me to be creative? And I really felt like programming is one of those things,
Right.
you know, and I think that a lot of musicians feel that way, you know, that learning programming opens so many doors for you, as far as career, as far as what you want to do for yourself, just like for a project, if it's even for a musical project, there's a lot of music scripting languages out there too. And I think as a musician, I gravitated towards programming for this reason, and I think many other musicians do too. So that's why I had said that theory.
Oh, great. Yeah, so I can actually, I fully agree, because I see software development not just as just writing code. For me, it's more than that. It's like art. It's like seeing things from a perspective, from another direction. And when I see clean code, I'm not that good at that right now, but when I see clean code and see someone who can write code in a very simple and in a very direct way, my mentor at work, for example, when I see that, I'm like, wow, this is
Yeah,
it's great. And it's the same thing for music. When someone starts jamming and you just see that harmony, those playing with those strings and playing with those keyboards, and you're just like, wow, this is art. So that same thing I feel when I program, when I start communicating with other objects, with functions, and with
yeah, man, I feel the same way. And it's cool as in programming, you're continuously learning, and that makes it fun.
Yeah.
You know, you're always learning new stuff and able to build off what you had previously. And it's the same way with music.
Yeah, that creative part, it's extreme, like
you're
bringing
just
something to life.
Layer.
Yeah, just adding another layer upon layer, and then the connection between those layers still has to be stable, and it's great.
Yeah, and so one day I want to somehow make my programming and my music passion come together somehow. And maybe that means like building some type of application. Maybe it means doing that music scripting I was mentioning before. I don't know yet, but all I know is I'm really happy right now. I'm happy with my career, and I'm happy with my where I am musically. And there's the sky's the limit for me and for everyone else. I'm very encouraged by how my career has gone. And yeah, it's I'm here sitting with you talking about it, and that's awesome too. And yeah, I'm just really grateful.
All right, Matthew, thank you very much for being my guest. In the description section, you're welcome. In the description section, I'm going to add the GOTO talk, a link to the GOTO talk. So for people who are interested, want to know more into Redux, can watch it, and your blog too, of course.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed the talk. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.
This one is going to be for when we are doing the podcast. Yeah, this is going to be the one. Should I? Okay.
Yeah, all right. You have an intro, and
Yeah,
I'll come in on the
okay.
second bar.
All right.
Second.
Okay.
I had to jam in the park on Sunday. And I played for 4.5 hours.